made you smile today. So that's wonderful. It's Friday, so we should be smiling. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with this Friday. And my name is Nancy Squicciarini. I'm going to be your facilitator, and I am head of community relations. I was also an assistant principal for teaching and learning. I love ECIS. I was their SIG chair for teaching and learning for about 6 years, and it was part of my heart. And I think what I loved more is that for 24 years, I taught 6th grade. And some people say I have the mentality of a middle schooler, but that's okay. I'm proud of that. And because of my love for teaching, I've been fortunate to work with different organizations about teacher leadership and teacher training. So I'm privileged to be part of the ECIS family. I'm proud to be part of the PTC family. And I also work with Chapters International presenting. So it's kind of like, I just love seeing people and elevating their voice. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'm also involved with Women Ed. Also, who's with us is lovely Joe. So Joe, give a shout out, Joe.
Hi, everyone.
Yay for Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Is there to help us with any questions you might have about the Middle Leader program. And she's just fabulous. So, and her email is on the slide. So, and she's also on the ECI website. So anything that you need that you might have a question about. Now, prior to meeting today, you might have gotten this slide. And what I like to do is give links before a presentation. But if you didn't get this slide, no problem, because I'll be putting, or actually Joe will be putting links in the slide, in the chat. So you know about Joe, you know a little bit about me, and now we want to know something about you. So one of my favorite songs and one of my favorite bands is not because I love CSI, but I like to know who you are. So we're going to do something different. I don't know if you've ever done this before. I'm going to give a prompt. And if you can, for your Zoom, put it as gallery rather than just focusing on the speaker. Put it on gallery. It's more fun that way. And then we'll put it back to me if you really want to see me. But I like looking at other people. And I'm going to give you a prompt. And if this prompt applies to you, keep your video on. But if this prompt doesn't apply to you, you shut off your video. But don't go anywhere. We want you back. So don't go anywhere.
Nancy, do you want to stop your share? Because we can actually only see the screen share at the moment.
Oh,
gallery.
Yeah. You want to see me?
There we go. That's better.
Hello, everybody. You didn't see my face yet. How scary. So are we ready? The first prompt is, I'll give an example. If you are left-handed, you keep your video on. So how many left-handed people are here today? And if you're not left-handed, wow. Okay, so all of us lefties, we're the creative ones. So that's wonderful. Give us a round of applause, yay for lefties. Now listen for the next prompt. Now we're gonna look at roles. I wanna see who's in the room. So right now, who is a teacher leader? If you are a teacher leader, please leave your video on. If you're not a teacher leader, take off your prompt. Wow, we have a lot of teacher leaders. So we want to see why are you here today? Let's try another role. If you are in leadership, so for example, a principal or a assistant principal or any part of leadership, could you leave your video on? If you're not leadership, shut off your video. Let's see how many leaders are here. Okay, leaders, a lot of this message is for you. So we're glad. Thank you for taking the time to join me. And lastly, is there someone who is not a teacher leader or a teacher or in leadership? You have another role. For example, my role is head of community relations. Please leave your video on. For those who are not, let's see. So we have those in different roles. Wonderful. So that was a different way to see who's here. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see you, honey. Wonderful. And just hi, honey.
Hi.
So
hi.
This is just a good way for when you're facilitating to see who's in the room, and it was really quick and you got to see everybody. So now I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And thank you for doing that so we can just get an idea of who's here. So what are our virtual rules? We have some norms. Well, first of all, you don't have to mute if you don't want to, because what is the most famous quote of 2020? You're on mute. So you don't have to be on mute because sometimes it makes the conversation go flow. But if you know that your husband's going to come in and ask for dinner, yes, then put yourself on mute. Second of all, if you want to speak at any time, Joe's there to help me facilitate because I have a shared screen and sometimes I can't see everyone. So you can use the hand signal. Please keep your camera on if you want to engage, especially if we do a breakout room. And we're going to chat. If you're going to chat, please chat to the entire group. And lastly, you have to be focused. You cannot go on another screen and do some Amazon shopping. Does everyone promise? No Amazon shopping. Focus is here. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to show you some highlights from the ECIS Middle Leaders Program when it was face-to-face. And while you're watching, could you please think of one word that comes into your mind? And if you want, jot it down, but just one word after, and it's only about 2 minutes, but these are some highlights from the ECIS Middle Leaders Program.
Yeah. I'm in a
Stop for a moment and think of that one word, please.
Do you want us to write it somewhere or just keep it in our heads?
Oh, you'll see. I got a little secret I'm going to share with you now. So there are 3 ways I would like you to share your word. Number 1, there's a QR code. Number 2, Joe is going to put a link in the chat. Or number 3, there is a URL on the slide. So any way you want to do it, you will please add your word via the QR code, the link in the chat, or the, you can see the link there. Okay.
I already made a mistake.
That's okay. That's how we learn. By the way, this is going to be one of those rogue webinars where people are just going to start talking crazy. I can feel it. So let's see what words are coming into mind. And the word, as you know, that is the largest is the one that is repeated the most. And I'm going to give about 10 more seconds. One, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And last thoughts. Wonderful. Well, guess what? I'm now done. I'm gonna sign off now because you have just summarized the Middle Leaders program, and that it is one that is based upon collaboration and elevating the voices of those in the room. Number 2, it's making connections, developing cohorts that even after some of those groups that they have been, I think they may have taken the course 3 years ago, they're still maintaining those connections. the engagement, that we're not sitting in chairs, we're not moving. Now you're thinking, Nancy, we're now virtual. How do you do that? Well, it's actually part of this webinar is not just what Middle Leaders is, it's also how we facilitate. So the first thing we did to start off this webinar was developing a sense of community, seeing who's in the room. Number two, getting you engaged immediately. You had to think of a word, and now you see your feedback is already shared with the entire group. So when we go through this, think of it in two ways: what we do and how we do it. Okay, let's just get out of this. Sorry. I'll just get out of here. Sorry guys, don't you love when things just freeze on you? I'm going to stop share for 1 minute and say hello so I can get out of this. Sorry, everyone. You can just chat to yourselves. You know when people say, just chat to yourselves. Like, what does that mean? We're in a Zoom. I'm like, I know. Wow. Don't mind me. You're only in front of 38 people and your computer freezes. Don't you love that? Here we go. I'm back. Sorry about that. It only freezes when you're in front of people. It's kind of like the IT. That only happens. Okay, so let me go back to presenting. And let's go back to the share screen. And I know my tabs, my computer's being very odd today because it knew it was presenting. So please excuse me because my tabs are showing. Joe, it's not happy again.
Oh no.
It's okay. We're just going to make things do, right? Everyone's gone through this, so that's why we're going to do it. So why are we here today? Our goal is to provide an overview of the ECIS Middle Leaders Program, what we do and how we do it. Number two is identify some of your school's needs and course, and how does it align with the course objectives? And also, what are some of your areas that you would like to recommend for future courses? Now, please note that there is a document that Joe is going to put the link in the chat, that during the course of this next 45 minutes, if you have a question, I'm going to go back to this document, or if we don't have time during the next 45 minutes, we will write directly back to people with the concerns, because I believe Cam, she's here as well, the CEO. Say hi, Cam. Where's Cam? Did she leave? Where'd she go? I lost Cam.
Hello, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, famous quote of 2020. Cam is also here, who is the CEO, where once you put your questions in your email, we will respond to you. So if we don't have time today, so please use this document that was just shared in the chat. So why are we here? It's Middle Leaders. I love this book, Hidden in Plain Sight, and the quote that the impact that teacher leaders have in terms of impacting teaching and learning. And it really can transform a school, but it takes multiple components to make that happen. And the one I think the most interesting thing is right now we have 36 people here, and every one of your schools has experienced success in terms of teacher leadership, every one of your schools. And it also, what does effective teacher leadership actually look like? Now, remember, one of the goals here is to elevate your voice and also to make connections. So what I would like you to do now is almost close your eyes and think about school success that you've had, that with teacher leadership, that you're like, wow, this should be on the cover of like the ECIS magazine. This was so powerful, and it's powerful because it impacts student learning and teacher practice.
You volunteer.
David, what a beautiful family.
Cheers.
Love that. We can just stare at David's family. Let's forget about the rest of this. Let's see what David.
We were in the family room, so we were very lucky. They were in our group.
That's beautiful. Now, if you noticed during the chat, you had different tasks to share an image. And then I also asked, did you remember your breakout room?
Yeah, 4. We were
Right.
4.
You did? And did you assign a person to do a quick shout out about your group? You did?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So let's try breakout. The person speaks for approximately about 1 minute or less. It's just a quick shout out of what you were able to get from that takeaway. And I hope the two most important things about this breakout room was, number one, to make a connection, maybe make a friend, get an email address. And number two, maybe you learned something because you were with 5 other international schools. So how best do you learn than grabbing from other international schools? To me, that is the ultimate prize. So can I, breakout room 1?
Yeah, that was us, Nancy.
Hi there.
So I've been assigned speaker for our room. So I think the main takeaways was that online learning has been a real success. So the different ways of kind of teaching online, and also really bringing in the community into that online learning. We had one example of a Victorian day that was kind of taught, so they had to do learning but with no technology whatsoever, which is another task as well. So yeah, some really great online learning. And Chris also mentioned around networks, how a success story is the networks that have been established across kind of during these difficult times, that are helping international schools to grow and develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give a round of applause. I'm going to do my reaction. Yay. Well done. And it's true, the connections that have been made these past year, we hope it continues regardless of what changes in terms of COVID, that this is where we should be trying to get that collective wisdom. Breakout to room 2, please. What was your takeaway? 1-minute summary.
I think that's my group. I'm trying to see somebody from my group on the screen who's going to nod at me. Okay, if I'm not group 2, I'm sorry. We ended up having quite a wide-ranging conversation. We talked about some success stories to do with normal face-to-face school, standards-based grading, that sort of thing, and also looking at school groups and kind of different schools being approached for other schools to borrow their models of education. And then we started talking about online learning and bringing kids back in face-to-face, because we were all at different stages of that. And we were just talking about the joys of teaching PE through Zoom, and how much your neighbours enjoy you teaching PE. Yeah, and then we were just talking about kind of, we had teachers ranging from primary up to, I've got DP kids who've just come back for mock exams, and we were talking about the importance of getting back in for face-to-face and keeping it safe.
Yeah, thank you so much. Another round of applause. I'm going to do my reaction. Yay! I always do like air applause because sometimes you don't want everyone clapping at the same time. Group 3, please. Breakout 3. What was your 1-minute summary?
Hi, I believe that was us. Thank you, Bartolome, for helping me remember the number. Well, it's no surprise that most of us were talking about various online and successes in the different sections of schools, early childhood, examples of connection that ensured students, very young learners, were having a window to, external reality, and not just their homes in very strict confinement in Madrid, for instance. Others were also sharing the successes they believed were related with reorganization of their schools in a push towards creating that middle management that really is a change maker in a school. And we also had a little connection, didn't we? Because many of us were theory of knowledge teachers. For some reason, you put us in the same group, and that was quite interesting. We enjoyed talking a little about that. And I think I've given more or less our summary. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was lovely. Round of applause, air applause. Yay! It's lovely to hear about that collaboration, and also, COVID has had some silver linings, and many of it is the role of the leadership, the middle leadership, in terms of their role as supporting the teachers, but also being a voice for the leadership to realize their experiences of being online for 8 hours or being in a mask for 8 hours, and giving that perspective that's authentic. I think up to room 4, please. 1-minute summary.
Yes, so that's us. We were. Hi, I'm Sonia.
Sonia,
And I'm in the same school where David is, so that is international.
Sorry.
We were saying basically everybody, we were agreeing our successes were COVID stories. So how we all so quickly went online, how the kids were so quickly adapting, using the technology and just embracing the challenge that it is. And teachers being extremely professional, continuing with their job, And we also appreciated leadership and the way they sort of took us all on board, and the uncertainty of never knowing, when are we going back? Are we going back online? When are we opening? And even if we are opening, in what sort of format are we opening? So at least here in Germany, and that's the same for most of Europe, there weren't 3 weeks that were the same. So the constant changes, and yet the constant readiness and willingness of teachers and staff to adapt. So those were, I think, what united all our stories.
And regardless of the geographic location, to feel that similarities, and even in terms of challenges, but in terms of success. Round of applause. We have to make sure we continue, everyone, because we have to show the love. And then we have to do group 5 now, please. 1 minute summary. Group 5. Did we have any of someone from group 5?
I think, were we group 5? Maybe?
Yes, Simon, we were, and you're the perfect person to do it.
Yay, thank you for volunteering.
Thank you, Matthew. I got Matthew's email address. He was pretty keen with that straight away. Matthew's from the International Trilingual School in Warsaw, so we made a connection there. Our success stories were similarly, I mean, just reiterating what other groups have been talking about, successes regarding making online learning work, whether it's scheduling, whether it's how PE lessons look, and that sort of thing, and also within the time scale and making things happen yesterday, with no notice and that kind of stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Simon. A round of applause also. So you're probably wondering, Nancy, I've been here for almost 35 minutes. You haven't spoken about the Middle Leader program yet. We actually have. In how we approach getting a group of people from diverse backgrounds to share who and what they are as leaders and as educators. And it also refers back to, which I think is really powerful. It goes back to the, let me just close this, Middle Leaders program, and also the values of ECIS. So why did we do what we just did? Well, we're looking at keeping learning at the heart. We're looking at building connections. That was the one thing that I started from the beginning, saying we need to have those connections, and the idea of caring about each other. That came out really, really strong with between the 5 stories. And of course, the idea of innovation, co-creating, teachers suddenly doing things. So when looking at the Middle Leader program, it aligns directly to the ECIS values. So let's take it a step further. Now, we know that there's some challenges when it comes to middle leadership. And right now, we're just going to do a quick protocol. And the protocol works like this. I'm going to give a statement. If you say that this statement really responds and relates to why there's some challenges, because we heard about your success stories, but what are some challenges about middle leaders? If you think this statement resonates with your school, you go to 5. And then if you think, you know what, this is not a problem with us, we really have this under control, you do a 5th, and then you do it gradually. And we're going to show, and please put your screen as gallery. So this way you can see if this is a common trend within the 30 people that we have here today. So let's look at some of the challenges that we have with some. Is it that teacher leaders say that they were often rebuffed when they were offered to observe in colleagues' classrooms, or made suggestions about teaching? So remember, 5 means that, you know what, this resonates with me, or this has never been an issue in my school. Teacher leaders have always been able to go into the classroom. They've never really had any challenges in giving suggestions. Please put your hand up on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, and put yourself in gallery and see what the others are saying. Okay, and you know when people share screens, you know that you can make the shared screen smaller by moving the bar. I think we've been on Zoom long enough to know. Okay, so we have fingers. Okay, we have some trends. Some. Okay, let's try another one. Inadequate time for collaboration, learning about leading, activities. Teacher leaders just haven't been given. They're given the title, they apply, but they're not given the time to learn, and they aren't given the time to collaborate. So on 1 to 5, 1, 2, 3. Put your hand up. Okay, we got a range. One more. The role isn't defined. That your job description wasn't shared with the school, or you don't have a job description, or you applied for the job in May and you started in August and you really don't know what the job is. And if you don't know, how does your team know? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. How does this resonate with you? Ah, we got a lot of 5s on that one. We got quite a few 5s. And last one. This refers to veteran teachers, perhaps not acknowledging or feeling that you don't have the experience or qualifications to lead them. Scale of 1 to 5 on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have a big range there. So these are some of the challenges. Now, what I gave to you is these quotes can be used within your own school to actually help a discussion, not about focusing on the problems, but actually moving forward with the solutions. So that's why we're here to talk about the Middle Leader program, because that is what this program hopes to address some of the issues that we just mentioned. Now, how do we have courses that focus on student learning? Well, let's just start off with this. In the book, The Positive Leader, the author, Jan, actually says there are almost 850 different definitions of leadership. So within your school, I ask, how have you defined it? So if I came to your school and say, okay, where are your leadership standards? Where's your definition of leadership? Where can we find that? Because a common vocabulary provides a common understanding. Now, this is the same approach that we do for the Middle Leaders program, that we need to have common vocabulary in order to have a common understanding. So what we've done is we have used the Learning Forward standards. And the Learning Forward standards are that are divided into these areas. So the first is looking at the definition of teacher leadership, purpose, and roles. And then we have the idea of what conditions are really useful in terms of having successful teacher leadership. Then we look at, once you're a teacher leader, how do you assess your success? And this actually goes into like professional growth model, supervision and evaluation, which is always somewhat of a challenging area with schools, because I've done a lot of courses. I teach a lot of courses on supervision and evaluation, and that's a hard one when looking at, and does your school have leadership or teacher leadership standards? So if you got the position, how are you measured in your success? And lastly, looking at the cultivation of dispositions and teacher leadership. So why do we have standards? Well, think about it within your school. Do you have standards for math? Do you have standards for English literacy? So the ECIS program has leadership standards. So regardless of who facilitates, your learning experience is, you have the same learning experience. So if you're with Kylie, or if you're with me, or if you're with Teresa, it doesn't matter, because we are based upon the program on these standards. Now, Joe, if you don't mind, would you mind putting a link to this document, the standards that we're using for teacher leadership? Joe's going to put the link in so you have access to this document. And actually, all the units are mapped using a curriculum mapping called Atlas, which I'm not going to show now, but just so you know that it shows consistency, and it shows that it's part of the organization, which I think is really, really powerful. So this is only one piece of the puzzle, is taking a Middle Leader course. You can't just say, I've taken 3 courses and now I'm a leader. No, doesn't work like that. So what does ECS have to offer? Well, I think when looking at building capacity for teacher leadership, you first have to look at this 4 areas. And the first area, this comes from a book that I absolutely love that I mentioned before, Hidden in Plain Sight. And it talks about internal professional development. What is the school doing to promote teacher leadership? So the first is the most powerful, is cohort to cohort, critical friends, using protocols like the tuning protocol to get teachers to really have a psychological safety to share their areas. And internal, you could also invite someone to your school virtually or face-to-face. So that's one area when developing capacity. The next is looking at networking, professional learning. Look who's in your area. Who could you connect with to do what we did today? You had 10 minutes to meet with 6 other international schools. What can you do within your own region to get teacher leadership, to get together with other teacher leadership, to embrace their experiences, shadow a colleague, job alikes? Then we have the external, that is going what would traditional, what we had before COVID. You go to a workshop, you attend, but even more powerful is sending one person and having them teach the group when they get back, or having an external provider go to workshops. And last, to develop teacher capacity is the teacher, it's him or herself taking that learning on, that they also have to be initiating their own learning by trying to find a mentor, documenting their learning journey, even purchasing literature. I'm a geek. I get kicked out of book clubs because my books, they say they stink, because I'm bringing like Robert Mazzano. I'm like, he's great. And they're like, get out. I'm like, oh. So, but I love reading just what's best practice. I do watch Netflix, by the way. I don't just read research. And the last thing is, how do you develop their professional learning capacity? So really, these are 4 areas that when you look at developing teacher leadership, that as a leader, and as you remember when we started this conversation, we have quite a few leadership here and teacher leaders that we should be looking at. The positive is this: what does ECIS have to offer? Well, first of all, it does internal professional learning. You can invite someone to your school to help, because at times you want to have that group have a similar learning experience. What else does ECIS provide? External, as you know. Well, external is now virtual, but before I used to go to schools and provide workshops. Now I do it virtually with you guys. And the last, which I think is really, really exciting for ECIS, is when you start doing the Middle Leader program at ECIS, you're also there's a new initiative, which is going to be mentorship, where there's going to be an established platform to really meet other leaders. And I think this is one of the most exciting, that when looking at developing your personal learning network, you don't just have the Middle Leader program, but you also have the mentoring program, which is coming soon. So I'm giving a little teaser. I'm going to stop for 1 minute or so and just take a breath, because I've been talking a lot. 10-2, speak for 10 minutes, process for 2. Does anybody, I can't see everyone's hand raising because I'm sharing a screen, but if you have a question right now, Joe, if you see somebody, if anybody needs any clarification, are we okay to move on?
It looks good my end, Nancy.
Wonderful. I can see by your smiles you're ready. Yes, it's Friday. So let's look at the teacher leadership courses. There are 5 courses, and there is one that is required by anyone to get the ECIS Teacher Leadership Certificate, which is the culture of leadership. There was a link, and I think, Joe, if you could put the link in the chat, which gives you a summary of all the courses. So you would have building and leading teams, curriculum assessment, and each one of them is exactly what we've been trying to do today, getting you to speak to one another. Everything is based on best practice. These are learning principles, not learning beliefs. It's not like, I think this is wonderful, let's do it. Principles meaning is based on research and best practice. And again, using the learning forward standards as the framework. Now, what about the trainers? And this is where I think the strength of the program is all the trainers are international leaders. It's not like we're private consultants making 100 million euros a year. No, we work in international schools. We're with teachers all the time. We are there. And our experience is really just middle leadership, which is so exciting. So for example, these are 4 facilitators. Keely is in The Hague. She is the Director of Teaching and Learning. I'm here, which you've met. Teresa, absolutely adore. She's in Prague. And then we have Helen, who's just a little slice of sunshine. And I think between the four of us, we must have 100 years of teaching experience. We're all very young, but we just love it. We love working with teachers. We love the experience, and we do it every day. So I think that is what celebrates this program, is that when the teacher leaders leave this program, they get direct takeaways, just like I'm hoping you're learning today in some of the ways that I've facilitated this workshop. I want you to meet Teresa. She's just brilliant. I just, like, when I need help, I call Teresa. And I want to show a little 2-minute video of Teresa and another facilitator working with a school in Germany. As it comes. It's very tired. It's Friday. There we go. I know you've probably seen this, but I think it's really powerful to just.
Education is changing, and very many experienced teachers and experienced educators, experienced leaders, but life in school and the game of education is changing.
One of the points of this course is to bring real capacity to leaders, so they are actually leading learning. It's about strategies you can take away, obviously a real knowledge and understanding about what we mean in depth about assessment, perhaps some of the new ideas.
What do we mean by assessment? Because we use so many different terms in different schools. So helping people get more clarity for themselves, and then shifting and looking at what makes the biggest difference for student learning, what has the biggest impact.
It's great to have an opportunity to reflect on some really key ideas and practices within education. In terms of takeaway ideas, it's making assessment as authentic and as relevant to the students and the teachers as possible.
That assessment isn't just about the grades at the end of a unit or at the end of the year. You know, it's really something that can be woven into the curriculum and something that we can be doing more regularly alongside the learning that the students are doing.
The students should.
That was a little sneak peek of Teresa. She's absolutely amazing. You can go online. It's actually from the website from ECIS, the Middle Leaders page. So what makes it so strong when it comes to teacher leadership is that when it comes to each one of the programs, we do something called triple track. And what that means is all the strategies that are presented can be used in 3 ways. First, it's about you. I'll go back one. I went too fast on that one. It's about you and how you're applying it to your learning right now. The next is about applying it to the team that you're working on in terms of being a middle leader. How can you use the strategies that you've learned in the course to your team? And the third is how can you apply it to your classroom? So during the course, you'll see walls, and we do the same things virtually now with Google Slides, looking at, here are some protocols. How could this protocol be used again in track 1 within your learning, track 2 within colleagues, and track 3? And this is nothing that I thought of at ECIS. This is actually Thinking Collaboratively, which is a brilliant organization, Adaptive Schools. And this is how we foster the idea of direct takeaways that you can bring back after leaving this course in terms of triple track. And these strategies are something that we also have at the end of each session that people unpack. How can I apply this to my teaching? How can I apply it with my team? So you've seen the courses, and I think there was a link that Joe put in there regarding for you to have an overview of the courses. And before you go today, we did want to give you a little brief overview, but we also wanted your feedback. As you saw, there were 5 courses. And are there any areas or topics that you say within your school, you know what, we need a course on this? I wish my teacher leaders knew more about bump, 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 bump. Joe is going to put a link in the chat, which is a survey. Now, some of you have already done it, so we thank you. And we're going to share this data with you, but it's almost telling us to what degree are the 5 courses, would they be helpful for you with your school or you as a teacher leader, but also what are some topics that you would suggest? So Joe, thank you for putting that in the chat. And I'll show you some of the results so far. So right now we have let's see how many responses we have. Okay, it was a little slow. We have 7 so far. So come on, guys, you can put your, I know there's like 29 of you in there. This feedback is really powerful for us to move forward with courses that meets the membership's needs, because it wouldn't be really useful if we had this course and we're like, we don't know why ECIS has this. So we're looking for feedback, and with many surveys, if you don't do something with the data, then don't do the survey. So this is something that we will use to think, how do we move forward with this program? So we're looking so far, and I love it. So someone already gave a suggestion. Leading and managing inclusion and diversity. Guess what? We have Cam. This is her passion. So I can imagine a course being developed about this with Cam even teaching it. So thank you for that suggestion. We're going to send you this link as a follow-up after this webinar, because your feedback is essential in terms of moving forward with this program. Now, before you go, I just want to say, first of all, you've been, I hope, let's go back to triple track. So were you able to get some learning that affected you as your own learning today? Were there any strategies that I did today that you could actually do with your team? Mentimeter, breakout sessions, using a QR code, surveys online. And could you do this with, like I said, team or your students? So let's see if there were any questions. As I promised, we're going to see if there were any questions in the parking lot. Now, if there's none, I know I did a great job then. Let's see.
I guess the main question that could come up is around, so when are we going to relaunch the Middle Leader Certificate? So we're hoping that in February we will have a whole calendar of events that will be live on the ECIS website. We do have 2 workshops which are actually happening next week ahead of our launch in February. One delivered by Nancy, Building and Leading Teams, and one delivered by Helen. I will make sure I pop that information in a follow-up email to you all, as we do have some last-minute spaces on those 2. But I'll be in touch with you all the beginning of February with a whole calendar of our courses coming up for 2021.
Wonderful, thank you. And one thing, I love the first question by Carrie, to what extent does a leader develop those qualities while on the job? I just read some research, and it actually was one of my slides I was going to use. It talks about, I think it's 70, 20, 10, and 70% is on the job. And also remember what I mentioned before about the 4 areas you should develop in capacity. So those 4 are not equal, 25, 25, 25. Spanish, I don't really know. My mother is Puerto Rican, but my Spanish, and I'm speaking more French now, so I'll have to ask Cam for that one. And in terms of registration, I think Cam or Joe will go back to Matt and Carrie about your questions, especially about having some on-site training. I think Joe will definitely go back to that.
Yeah, I'll quickly jump in now, Nancy, that we actually offer, so if you have a large cohort from your school, we do also offer closed course middle leader course training. So just pop me an email and I'll be able to arrange that for you.
So as I think as Joe actually responded to all this, there's going to be dates to be confirmed. We think there's going to be like 4 sessions, 2 hours per session, and there'll be a little bit of, some data collection during that time, but Joe would be the one to get back to you on that. And there she is again. We love Joe with her email. Isn't she pretty? Love Joe. Oh, love her. And the last thing is, I hope that during this hour, and I'm sorry, I'm 1 minute over, that we've been able to elevate, first of all, your understanding of the ECIS Middle Leaders Program. Number two, not just what we do, but how we do it. The facilitation of today's module means more than content. You can get the content anywhere, but it's the collaboration and how you get people to elevate, so that guy's off the floor, elevate is really what makes the power.
Yeah.
So we started off with these 3 essential questions. And could you please, in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 10, to what degree do you feel that these objectives were met? And you don't have to be nice. That's when you say, oh, I'll give it 10 because you're going to yell at me. I don't yell. I'll just find you later. Only kidding. Just to get feedback, because it's almost like an exit slip. It's now time to bring it to an end. Please, to what degree do you feel your needs were met? And then we're going to have a follow-up email with all this data and the slideshow and all the links for you, so you can have all this data. And we have to say thank you. So Joe and Cam, anything to say before we leave?
Yes, so just before you all leave today, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to have so many of you join us this late on a Friday afternoon. A massive thank you to Nancy for hosting this particular session. At ECIS, to reiterate, one of our strengths for our MLC is our facilitators. They are true practitioners. And what they will help you do is build a whole leader. And you'll be able to go back to them, ask for further help with anything. So we look forward to welcoming you onto our MLC courses. We are already running them in schools for large groups, and they're coming back once a week and having the delivery weekly. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and we will send you all follow-up information. And a massive thank you and clap for Nancy.
Hey, everybody, you all deserve a round. Wave, everybody, wave like an yay! Now it's Friday, everybody. It's time to relax, enjoy your families, and get offline. We've been offline enough.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.